How do you define a bottle episode? It may not be as easy as you think. I always thought the term bottle episode came from an episode being completely self-contained, like a ship in a bottle. It's art you create within those small parameters. Apparently, the term actually was coined by the creator of the Outer Limits series, Leslie Stevens, to mean a show made quickly and cheaply that turned out great. Direct quote being, as in pulling an episode right out of a bottle, like a genie. The top of all the bottle episode lists you'll find online is usually this episode of Community.
Okay.
Are we going to the puppy parade or not? Because this is starting to feel like a bottle episode.
Again with the TV crap. Hey, Meatball, did you take Annie's pen to make life more like Benny Hill or whatever you do?
Stop it.
I wouldn't do that. I hate bottle episodes. They're wall-to-wall facial expression and emotional nuance. I might as well sit in the corner with a bucket on my head.
Because it's, as the whole series itself was, it's very self-aware and explains what you need to know about a bottle episode very easily. Another famous example of a bottle episode is Seinfeld's season 2 episode, The Chinese Restaurant. An episode that producers were so sure would tank the show's ratings, they begged David and Seinfeld not to go through with it, but they went through with it and it turned out to be a beloved episode. Unlike Community, however, this Seinfeld episode isn't one long self-referential gag. It's not about a bottle episode, it's about characters waiting for a table in a Chinese restaurant. They argue over whether they should leave, they try to find ways to get a table, it's all very relatable, understandable, and there's some side story stuff in there to keep the whole thing moving along at an entertaining pace. It's good stuff. There would be nothing added to this episode if they went to a second location. Sure, they could put in a scene where they all step outside for some air or something, but that wouldn't really affect the main narrative much, so why put it in there? Going back to Community, they have episodes that feel like bottle episodes, but they cut away to other rooms, so technically they're not. Like both the D&D episodes feel like bottle episodes. Season 3 episode 4, Remedial Chaos Theory, is another example of something that feels like it's a bottle episode because it's set completely within the apartment, centering most of its story around the table in the apartment, but there are asides in different rooms, so technically it doesn't count. Season 4 episode 10, Intro into Knots, is a bottle episode and completely set within the apartment, but it's in season 4 and we don't really talk about that much, do we? Frasier was another show that almost did bottle episodes. My Coffee with Niles is referenced as a bottle episode, but it's really not. It has 2 locations. It has the inside of Cafe Nerosa and the outside of Cafe Nerosa. I feel this has happened because the writers wrote it as a bottle episode and they were told they couldn't do it unless they changed locations because you never really see the outside of Cafe Nerosa, and them moving between locations doesn't add anything to the story. Same with the dinner party episode, which some think of as a bottle episode, but it's not because it cuts to a different room of the apartment. With all the episodes in Frasier set around the radio station or dinner parties, you'd think there'd be a lot more bottle episodes in their canon. Maybe there are and I'm just not recalling them, but I don't think so. I think it's just when you reflect on the series, you believe there were more bottle episodes than there were. For example, they go to ski lodges and cabins a few times. They find themselves out in the wilderness a lot in that show. One of the highest rated episodes is the Ski Lodge Season 5 Episode 14, and though, again, it feels like a bottle episode, there's a lot of room changing following all the different characters. These room changes and their relation to the different stories they're being entangled into becomes part of the plot, and we find ourselves in what they call a bedroom farce, a French comic play in the absurdist tradition where the humour arises from characters slamming doors, running around hallways, and misunderstanding who is in what room. Not to be confused with the hilarious Scooby-Doo corridor gag, of course. So here's a question that we should ask ourselves. Are all bottle episodes dependent upon being in a bottle for their plot? What do I mean? Well, you can see how in the examples of Community I gave you there, the downfall of them being true bottle episodes is that there are so many characters that the plot needs to send them to different rooms to have other scenes so they can relay pivotal information in regards to other things happening in the episode. So what that means to us is if you want to have a better ratio of bottle episodes, you really need a show that is just 2 protagonists. Bottom was a very English show. It was about 2 gross losers, Eddie and Richie, that have this bizarre friendship frenemy pairing, which is also like a pseudo spiteful marriage kind of thing, and they live together in this pretty disgusting 2-floor flat in Hammersmith. The episodes revolve around them wasting time, being disgusting losers, doing gross things, and beating the hell out of each other. And it's fucking great.
£11.80
Spaghetti was all we had to survive on for the next 2 months. What am I going to feed the children on now?
We haven't got any children.
Yes, I know. I was talking metaphorically.
You're talking bollocks.
But the reason I'm talking about the show in relation to bottle episodes is essentially every episode is written like a play. So most of them take place in the one location, with most of the episodes taking place in the apartments, yet in each season there is only one episode that you could say is a true bottle episode. Season 1, Episode 3, in which the plot revolves around Eddie wanting to watch Miss World. Season 2, Episode 2, in which Eddie and Richie have to find ways to pass the time without a telly. And Season 3, Episode 1, in which Eddie and Richie are stuck on a Ferris wheel. But even these episodes are dependent on how rigid your definition of a bottle episode is. Season 1, Episode 3 has some jarring camera angles in there, which stand out even more because so much of the show is shot front on, as if they were acting in a play. But they never leave the room, so are we saying that camera angles outside the room count as leaving the room? Series 2, Episode 2 has a cutaway gag, but the setting of the cutaway gag is in the same place as where the episode takes place. It's in the same timeline, but it does produce a time lapse. So are we going to say that you can't mess with the timeline in a bottle episode? It would be hard to say that Season 3, Episode 1 isn't a bottle episode because the whole thing takes place inside that carriage. But then there's the scene where Eddie leaves the carriage and climbs on top of the Ferris wheel. Is the bottle episode setting that carriage of the Ferris wheel? Or is it the Ferris wheel itself? All the episodes of Bottom that take place completely in the flat, which have cutaways to things happening in the bedrooms or the hallways, aren't bottle episodes, are they? But they are also technically the one setting. Where do we land on that? And then there's an episode where they go camping. That's all set in this one patch of land. But once they set the tent up, they're in a different scene. But that tent is on that piece of land that they've been on the whole time. Can you have a setting within a setting and still be a bottle episode? You see how this gets needlessly confusing the more we talk about it, don't you? One thing's for sure, though, Abbott's definition of a bottle episode being wall-to-wall facial expressions and emotional nuance fits every episode of Bottom to a T. That's a much more fancy way of describing what this show did. Rick Mayall's clowning was the best there was. He made this pathetic character that was so disgustingly weaselly, also so sad and pathetic you couldn't help but feel sorry for him, even though you knew what a creep he was. The emotional nuance may not have been Shakespearean, but it was definitely there. And there was also a lot of things exploding and breaking too, so that was a lot of fun.
What time do you call this?
So in conclusion, if we are sticking to the original definition of a bottle episode being a show that's quickly and easily made, then all the Bottom episodes are in fact bottle episodes. And that definition is a lot looser than people would think. Bottle episode in its current vernacular, then, well, it has to be a case-by-case basis, I guess. And before we wrap this up, I do want to say something. I feel like it's important to note that not every show needs a bottle episode. The format can be looked on as something as the writer's ultimate chance to prove their worth because it's just them flexing dialogue muscles, but when it's employed in things like that Family Guy episode when they're trapped in a vault, that made me stop watching that show. I was in and out of that show for years, just checking in to see how bad it would get, and after seeing that, it just pointed out how there was so little substance to these characters, and these fake flashes of depth and weird jokes just did not fit together. It's not a style of episode that every series needs to employ. And I don't usually do this, but as a late thought addendum, I've had to say, I guess Cheers must have a pretty high percentage of bottle episodes too, but I can't get into that show. I've tried for years. I don't know why. I guess it's just because I really don't like any of the main characters in it and I don't see what anyone else does. But hey, that's a different topic for a different time. This has been another episode of Let Me Tell You Why That's Funny. the YouTube video essay series on comedy you can find on tophatsandcanes.com and on Top Hats and Canes YouTube. Please subscribe to find out when more are coming and when other videos about other stuff are going to drop too.